I could still hear the laughter of my family as we got out of the car, the automatic doors of the airport sliding open in front of us. The smell of coffee and the noise of busy travelers filled the air, but I was focused on one thing: the boarding passes my dad held in his hand. Our long awaited family vacation was finally happening. At least that's what I thought. Alex, get the luggage, my mom said, already taking out her phone to snap pictures. Don't forget your passport this time. I rolled my eyes and lifted my suitcase onto the trolley, ignoring the teasing. My younger brother Ethan was stuck to his phone, hardly noticing me as I made my way through the crowd. We got to the check-in counter and my dad handed over the tickets with a smile, his eyes showing something I couldn't quite understand. The airline worker scanned each ticket, her fingers moving quickly over the keyboard. Then she frowned, looking up at me. Sir, I don't see your ticket in our system. I blinked. What do you mean? My ticket should be with the rest of my family's. We booked together. She checked again. I'm sorry, but your ticket was canceled 2 days ago. There's no seat saved under your name. I felt a twist in my stomach. That has to be a mistake. Check again. My mom let out a laugh and I turned to see her and Ethan smiling at their phones. My dad, trying and failing to hide his laughter, patted me on the back. Guess you're not coming, son. What? My voice came out rough. My phone buzzed. A message from Dad. The plane's not for you. Go on a train holiday, loser. Ethan burst out laughing. Man, you should see your face. Classic. I stared at them, the weight of their betrayal hitting me. This wasn't just a harmless prank. They had actually canceled my ticket. While I worked extra hours for months, helping pay for this vacation, they had plotted behind my back. You're joking, right? My voice was barely above a whisper. Mom smirked. We thought it would be funny. You always take things too seriously. You canceled my ticket as a joke? My hands tightened into fists. I paid for this trip. I covered the upgrades, the hotel, the rental car, and you... Oh, don't be so dramatic. Dad cut in, grabbing his carry-on. You work all the time anyway. Thought you might enjoy a little staycation. A slow burn of anger built in my chest. You knew how much I needed this break. I've been paying your bills, Ethan's tuition. You'll be fine, Ethan muttered, already turning back to his phone. Chill out. Chill out? I scoffed, shaking my head. You've got to be kidding me. But they weren't. My family, my own flesh and blood, was leaving me behind like forgotten luggage, laughing as they headed toward security. Dad threw a casual wave over his shoulder. See you in a week. Don't burn the house down. I stood frozen as they disappeared into the crowd, their laughter echoing in my ears. My mind raced. This was no innocent prank. It was a message. A cruel, humiliating show of how little they valued me. Slowly, my anger hardened into something sharp and clear. If they thought I was nothing more than a cash machine, they were about to learn the price of their betrayal. The moment I walked back into my apartment, I closed the door and leaned against it, breathing out slowly. The pain of betrayal at the airport still hurt in my chest. Their mocking message played over and over in my mind. My own family had treated me like a joke, despite everything I had done for them. A funny prank, they had called it, but I wasn't laughing. Taking out my laptop, I logged into my banking app and looked at the long list of recurring payments. My brother's tuition fees, my father's golf club membership, my mother's beauty salon expenses. Then there was the emergency fund, a separate account they often used under the excuse of unexpected costs. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. For years, they had lived well, thanks to me. I had never once complained. I had worked hard to provide for them, making sure they never had to worry about bills, never had to limit their luxuries. And how had they thanked me? By embarrassing me at an airport and leaving me stranded. My jaw tightened. No more. The first cancellation was my brother's tuition payment. It was due in a week. I clicked on the cancel button and confirmed it with a deep feeling of satisfaction. Next, I moved to my father's golf club fees. I imagined his anger when he realized he could no longer walk onto the green, bragging about his so-called achievements while I paid the bill. Canceled. My mother's salon fees? Gone. The emergency fund? Locked. I changed the password and blocked their access completely. It took less than 10 minutes to undo years of financial dependence. My phone buzzed. A message from my mom. We just arrived. The beach is amazing. Hope you're not too upset, honey. It was just a joke. Love you. I laughed bitterly. A joke? A joke would have been pretending for a few seconds, not actually canceling my ticket and abandoning me. I turned off my phone and put it aside. Let them enjoy their vacation. They had no idea what was coming. As I made myself a late dinner, a sense of calm came over me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a walking wallet. I felt like a person taking back control of his own life. My family was about to learn a tough lesson, one they would never forget. The first message came from my brother. Hey, Alex, my tuition payment is due. Can you send it over? His tone was casual, as if nothing had happened. As if they hadn't left me humiliated at the airport while they flew off on a vacation I helped pay for. I smiled at the nerve. Oh, I think you should ask Mom and Dad, I replied, keeping my tone light. After all, they're the ones in charge of everything, right? He didn't answer right away. A few hours later, my mother messaged me. Alex, honey, I need you to send the usual for the salon rent. The payment is late. You wouldn't want your mother to be embarrassed, would you? I could almost hear the fake sweetness in her voice. They really thought I was just going to go back to being the family's personal ATM without question. I typed back, Sorry, Mom, I'm taking a break from paying for things. Maybe try booking an appointment at a cheaper salon? Or, better yet, ask Dad. Then came the inevitable call from my father. The moment I answered, he was already shouting. Alex, what the hell is this nonsense? The golf club fees bounced. I got an email saying the payment was declined. Are you seriously not covering it this month? I leaned back in my chair, letting out a short laugh. Oh, you mean your golf club membership? The one you made fun of me for never using? Yeah, I canceled that. Figured you could afford it yourself. Or maybe take a train to a public park instead. There was a pause before he exploded. Don't be ridiculous. You've always covered it. What kind of son refuses to help his own family? I felt my jaw tighten. The kind of son whose family thought it was funny to cancel his flight and leave him stranded like a joke. The silence on the other end stretched. Then he scoffed. You're overreacting. It was just a joke. Now stop this nonsense and send the money. Not happening, I said firmly. Maybe you should budget better. Or cut back on those expensive vacations. I hung up before he could reply. For the first time, I felt something close to satisfaction. They had relied on me for years without a second thought, assuming my money would always be there to support their lifestyle. But now, reality was setting in, and they were beginning to squirm. Over the next few days, their messages became more desperate. My brother tried calling 3 more times, each one more urgent. My mother sent a long-winded text about how family supports each other, conveniently forgetting how they had treated me. My father predictably switched between anger and guilt-tripping, neither of which worked. And then, the final breaking point, I received a message from my mother saying, Alex, we're coming home early, we need to talk. I smiled to myself. Let them come. This time, I was ready. The moment my parents walked through the front door, the air turned heavy. My father tossed his suitcase aside, his face twisted in frustration. My mother followed, her sunglasses still on top of her head, though her vacation glow had faded. They didn't greet me, they didn't need to. Their expressions said everything. How dare you? My father growled, his voice filled with disbelief. You canceled everything? My golf membership? Your mother's salon and your brother's tuition? I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. That's right. Thought it was funny to leave me stranded at the airport? Well, I'm just returning the favor. My mother's lips parted, but no words came. My brother Ethan wasn't as quiet. He stepped forward, desperation replacing his usual arrogance. Alex, come on, my tuition is due. I can't get kicked out of school. I let out a cold laugh. Not my problem. Maybe mom and dad should have thought of that before playing their little prank. My father slammed his palm against the table. We're your family. We raised you. You owe us. I stood looking him in the eyes. Number, I don't. You took my money for granted, treated me like a walking ATM, and humiliated me. Well, congratulations. Now you're on your own. A tense silence filled the room. My mother finally spoke, voice shaking. It was just a joke, honey. I scoffed. And this is just a lesson. I walked past them, grabbing my keys. As I reached the door, I turned back. Good luck figuring things out, losers. Then I left, leaving them to deal with the consequences of their own betrayal. Days passed, and the silence from my family was deafening. Then one evening, my phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls, desperate messages. My parents' bank account had hit zero. Bills were piling up, and reality had finally sunk in. I ignored the first few, but then a video call came through. I answered, and my mother's face appeared, her usual confidence replaced by tear-streaked exhaustion. Alex, please, she whispered. We need your help. We didn't realize how much we depended on you. My father appeared behind her, his pride visibly crushed. Look, son, he said, forcing the words out. We made a mistake. But punishing us like this, it's too much. I leaned back, studying their desperation. Funny, I said. You didn't think leaving me stranded was too much. But now that the joke's on you, it's different? Ethan's voice came from off-screen. Alex, I'll get kicked out of school. Please, just help with tuition. I exhaled slowly, letting the weight of the moment settle. Then I gave them the answer they feared. No. Their faces crumbled. My mother sobbed. My father's head dropped. Ethan cursed under his breath, but I felt nothing, not guilt, not regret. Just peace. I'm done being used, I said. Figure it out yourselves. And with that, I ended the call, closing the final chapter of their control over me.
The heat from the oven hit my face like a physical slap, but it was my mother's voice through the phone speaker that made my skin prickle cold. Haley wants everything perfect tonight. Aesthetic, you know. And well, you always have that smell on you. That yeast smell. Your hands are always stained. You look like a peasant, Abigail. I was pulling a tray of sourdough from the 400-degree oven, my forearms already marked with the constellation of burns that never quite healed. The metal edge of the tray bit into my palm through the towel. 4 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, the busiest hour at the Gilded Crumb, and my mother was calling to uninvite me from my own sister's engagement dinner. It just doesn't fit the old Boston vibe she's curating, she continued, her voice as casual as if she were discussing weather. You understand. The tray trembled in my grip. Sweat dripped down my temple, mixing with the flour dust that coated everything in my world. Behind me, the convection ovens hummed their familiar rhythm, the soundtrack of every dawn for the past 5 years. I watched a customer at the counter bite into one of my croissants, her eyes closing in genuine pleasure. That moment of connection, of feeding someone something real. That's what I lived for. But to my family, I was just the machine in the basement that kept the lights on. Okay, I whispered. The word tasted like ash. I understand. I hung up before she could say anything else. I set the tray down on the cooling rack and returned to the rhythm of the bakery, trying to push the conversation from my mind. My name is Abigail. I'm 31 and I'm a pastry chef. This is the story of how I finally stopped feeding people who were starving me. Before I tell you exactly how I made them regret that call, drop a comment and let me know what time it is where you are right now. I always wonder who's awake with me. The phone screen went dark in my flour-dusted hand. I stood there for a long moment, listening to Marcus, my sous chef, calling out orders. The bakery moved around me like a living thing. Timers beeping, dough rising, customers laughing at small tables near the window. This place was mine. I'd built it from nothing, from a food truck and a dream and more student loans than I want to think about. What my family didn't know, what they'd never bothered to learn, was that baking isn't romantic. People see the Instagram videos, the slow-motion flour clouds, the golden croissants steaming on marble counters. They don't see the 3 a.m. alarm, the burns that map your forearms like a war zone, the way your shoulders ache so deep it feels like your bones are grinding together. They don't see the $5,000 I transferred to my parents every single month for the past 5 years. My father, Brian, made some bad investments back in 2020. Lost a chunk of his retirement portfolio betting on cryptocurrency because his golf buddy said it was a sure thing. He never told anyone outside the family, of course. That would ruin the image. The old Boston Money image, the country club memberships and the brownstone in Beacon Hill. So I became the invisible wallet, the backup generator running in the basement while they entertained upstairs. When Haley needed a new camera because the old one didn't make her skin look dewy enough, I wrote the check. When the heating system in the brownstone needed replacing, I covered it. When my mother wanted to redecorate the living room because the old furniture didn't photograph well for Haley's lifestyle content, I made it happen. I told myself I was supporting the family. That's what you do, right? You take care of your people. But standing there in my bakery, staring at my reflection in the stainless steel prep table, I understood something for the first time. They loved the product. They despised the producer. They loved my money. They loved bragging about artisan bread from our daughter's bakery at their parties. They loved the security I provided, but they were ashamed of the work that made it possible. The sweat, the early mornings, the rough, scarred hands that actually created value. I was useful, not valuable. There's a difference. The next morning, the bell above my door didn't chime. It rattled, aggressive, entitled. The sound of people who think they own the place. I looked up from the laminating machine, my hands deep in cold butter and dough, to see my entire family storming into the shop. My father in his weekend blazer, my mother clutching her pearls like we were in some Victorian drama, and Haley, immaculate in cream cashmere, walking straight past me to check her reflection in the pastry case glass. Abigail, thank God. My mother was breathless, frantic. We have a crisis. No hello. No apology for yesterday, just crisis. The caterer canceled, Haley announced to her own reflection, smoothing her hair. Family emergency, he said, totally unprofessional. Anyway, we need you to fix it. I wiped my hands slowly on my apron, watching them. Fix what? The desserts, obviously. Haley finally turned to look at me, her face tight with irritation. We need 5 dozen of your midnight cronuts, the ones with the gold leaf, and a 3-tier vanilla bean cake with raspberry filling, delivered to the venue by 4 p.m. I glanced at the clock. 10 in the morning. They wanted a 3-day process completed in 6 hours, and judging by the way my father was suddenly fascinated by my industrial mixer, avoiding my eyes completely, they wanted it for free. Look, Abby. My father stepped forward, trying to sound authoritative. We know it's short notice, but this is for your sister. Jonathan's business partners will be there. We need to make a good impression. We need the best. Haley was back to examining herself in the glass, adjusting her cashmere. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at what I could do for her image. I was just another prop in her carefully curated aesthetic. That's when I saw it clearly. She used people as mirrors. Everything in her life existed only to reflect her beauty, her status, her brand back at her. She didn't see me standing there. She just saw a crack in her reflection that needed fixing. But I'd spent 5 years using my craft as a window, pouring my soul into this bakery to connect with people, to feed them, to offer them something real. I looked out. She looked in. We were fundamentally different species. I can't do it, I said. The silence was immediate and absolute. What do you mean you can't? My mother's voice climbed an octave. You have flour right there. Just make them. The dough for the cronuts takes 48 hours to rest, I said, keeping my voice even. The cake layers need to cool properly. It's physically impossible. You're just being selfish. Haley's face twisted into something ugly. You're punishing me because Mom uninvited you. God, you're so petty. It's my engagement, Abigail. You're going to ruin everything just because your feelings are hurt. I'm not being petty, I said. I'm being a baker. Physics doesn't care about your engagement party. My father slammed his hand on the prep table. A bowl of ganache jumped. Enough. You will figure this out. I don't care if you have to buy them from somewhere else and repackage them. You are going to fix this, or so help me God, Abigail. The bell chimed again, but this time the sound was different. Confident, heavy, the kind of entrance that changes the air pressure. My family froze. They turned toward the door, their faces instantly rearranging into polished smiles. Standing in the doorway was a man in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my delivery van. Tall, salt and pepper hair, eyes that scanned the room with predatory precision. Jonathan, the billionaire hotel mogul, Haley's fiancé. Jonathan! Haley rushed toward him, her voice climbing into that high-pitched squeal she used in her videos. What are you doing here? You're not supposed to see me before the party. She reached for him, aiming for one of those picture-perfect embraces she posted constantly. He sidestepped her smoothly, not even slowing down. He walked right past my parents, past the display case, straight to the counter where I stood. He looked at me. Not at the flower on my apron, not at the sweat on my forehead. Into my eyes. Are you Abigail? His voice was deep, serious. I nodded, too surprised to speak. He exhaled, a sound of genuine relief. I've been trying to meet you for 6 months. I'm Jonathan Reed. I own the Atlas Hotel Group. We exclusively contract with your bakery for our VIP suites. Your brioche is the only reason our Paris location has a 5-star breakfast rating. He glanced briefly at Haley, then back at me. When I heard your family was having a crisis with the caterer this morning, your father called my assistant looking for vendor recommendations. I realized this might be my only chance to finally meet you in person and find out why you've been ignoring my partnership offers. My mother made a choking sound. My father looked like someone had hit him with a brick. Haley stood frozen, her arms still half raised. You know her. Haley's voice trembled. Jonathan turned slowly, as if he'd forgotten she was there. Know her? Haley, this woman is a genius. I told you I only agreed to meet your family because I saw the last name and hoped you were related to the owner of the Gilded Crumb. The air left the room. Jonathan turned back to me, his expression shifting to confusion. I sent you 5 emails, Abigail. My team sent contracts. We wanted to partner with you to open a flagship location in our new Tokyo hotel. Why didn't you respond? We thought you weren't interested. I frowned, wiping my hands again. I never got any emails. I checked my inbox every night. I would never ignore an offer like that. He pulled out his phone, tapping the screen before turning it to face me. The email chain was there, but the reply address wasn't mine. It was forwarded to my father's personal email, the one he'd set up when he helped me configure the domain 5 years ago. I looked up at Brian. He was pale, sweating. Jonathan followed my gaze, his eyes narrowing as he understood. He intercepted them, I said quietly. Dad has access to the server? My father backed up against the mixer, stammering. I was protecting you, Abby. You're not ready for that kind of pressure. Tokyo, it's too far. We need you here. Who would help your mother? Who would help Haley? I was just trying to keep the family together. Jonathan let out a short, humorless laugh. You blocked a multi-million-dollar partnership because you wanted her available to run errands. Haley grabbed Jonathan's arm desperately. Babe, it doesn't matter. It was a misunderstanding. Look, we're here now. Abigail can just bake the pastries for tonight and we can talk business later. Family first, right? Jonathan looked at her hand on his arm like it was something foreign. Then he looked at my parents, shrinking in the corner. Then at me. I don't think there are going to be any pastries, he said. Actually, I cut in, there's something you should know about the pastries. My mother looked hopeful for half a second. You have some in the back? No, I said. The Midnight Cronuts sell out 3 months in advance. There's a waiting list, and the batch I made this morning, the ones you wanted, I already donated them. Donated them? Haley shrieked. To who? To the women's shelter on 4th Street. I drop them off every Friday at 9 a.m. "The cupboard is bare, Haley. There's nothing here for you. Not a crumb." Haley's face crumpled. The polished influencer mask finally slipped, revealing the spoiled child underneath. She screamed, not words, just a raw sound of frustration. "You're jealous," she yelled, her face turning mottled red. "You've always been jealous of me. You're just a baker, Abigail. You play with flour while I build a brand. You're sabotaging my happiness because you can't stand that I'm winning. You're ugly and you're bitter and you're ruining my life." She was panting, chest heaving. My parents rushed to comfort her, shooting me looks of pure hatred. My father stepped forward like he was ready to physically force me to start baking. I looked at Jonathan. He was standing very still, watching Haley. His face was unreadable, carved granite. He was seeing the ugliness spill out of her, the entitlement, the cruelty, the complete lack of grace. Then he looked at me, standing calmly in my flour-dusted apron. I didn't say anything. I just let the silence stretch, let her words hang in the air, echoing off the stainless steel and tile. When someone is destroying themselves, you don't interrupt. You don't give them fuel by fighting back. You become a mirror. You let them see exactly what they are. The quiet grew heavy, suffocating. Then I moved. I reached behind my neck and untied my apron. The fabric rustled as I pulled it over my head. I didn't throw it. I laid it on the counter and folded it, corner to corner, edge to edge, perfectly square. I pulled the spare key from my pocket, the one my father had used to let himself in that morning, the one he used to invade my sanctuary whenever he needed something. I placed it on top of the folded apron. Click. Then I took out my phone. I opened my contacts. Mom, block, Dad, block, Haley, block. I did it slowly, deliberately, holding the screen at an angle so they could see exactly what I was doing. "Abigail, what are you doing?" my mother whispered, the color draining from her face. "I'm clocking out," I said quietly. "Marcus, you're in charge. Close up early today. Lock everything. Everyone gets paid for the full shift." "Yes, Chef," Marcus said, straightening up. I walked around the counter, past my father, who couldn't meet my eyes, past my mother, trembling as she realized she'd just lost her ATM and her verbal punching bag, past Haley, sobbing into her hands. I stopped in front of Jonathan. "I'm going to get a coffee," I said. "You're welcome to join me." Jonathan didn't hesitate. He didn't look at Haley. He didn't say goodbye to the parents he'd been trying to impress. He turned his back on all of them. "After you," he said. We walked out into the snowy Boston street. The bell chimed above us one last time. Behind us, the bakery smelled like burnt sugar and regret. Out here, the air was cold and clean. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in 5 years, I didn't feel their weight on my shoulders. I felt light. The fallout was quiet but devastating. Jonathan ended the engagement that same evening. He met Haley at a coffee shop downtown and told her directly that he couldn't marry someone whose cruelty toward family revealed a fundamental incompatibility of values. She tried to salvage it with tears and promises, but he'd already made his decision. The breakup was final within an hour, and by the next morning, Haley was alone with a canceled engagement party and mounting debts. She tried to spin it on social media. She posted a tearful video about being blindsided, about how her jealous sister ruined her big day. But without Jonathan's money and connections, her content dried up. The venue sued her for the cancellation fees, and after months of legal back and forth, she was forced to settle for an amount that drained what little savings she had. The aesthetic she'd cultivated crumbled because it was built on a foundation I'd been paying for. Her followers realized her lifestyle was a facade. They moved on to the next shiny thing. My parents were left with a brownstone they couldn't afford and debts they couldn't pay. Without my monthly transfers, the heat was turned off in February. They had to downsize to a condo in the suburbs, miles away from the old Boston image they'd coveted. They tried reaching out through cousins and aunts, sending messages about family unity and forgiveness. I never replied. I didn't need to. I'd already said everything when I put that key on the counter. That was the last time I saw or spoke to any of them, and I've kept it that way. The relationship is permanently severed. No reconciliation, no exceptions. As for the Gilded Crumb in Boston, I made Marcus a full partner and signed over majority ownership to him 6 months after that day. He'd earned it, and he continues to run it beautifully. I still receive a small percentage of profits, but the bakery is his now. It was time for me to build something new. A year passed quickly, filled with lawyers, contracts, and the organized chaos of building something from the ground up in a foreign country. I stood in front of a massive glass storefront in Tokyo. The sign above the door read, "The Gilded Crumb," in elegant gold lettering. Jonathan stood next to me, holding the ribbon-cutting scissors. We weren't a couple. We were partners. He respected my craft. I respected his vision. He looked at me and smiled, not with pity, but with the same reverence he'd shown that day in the bakery. I looked around at the crowd. My staff, handpicked and paid double the industry standard. The regulars who'd flown in for the opening. The women from the shelter I now sponsored with a percentage of our global profits. This was my family. This was the table I'd built. I picked up a fresh croissant from the tray. Warm, flaky, perfect. I took a bite and it tasted like freedom. If you're the one keeping the lights on for people who would leave you in the dark, listen to me. They will never hand you the switch. You have to turn it off yourself. It will be dark for a moment, yes, but then you'll finally see the stars. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles. Zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.
My knees buckled as the 3 words spilled from her lips, soft but devastating. I agree with them. Diana didn't even look up from her phone as she sided with the children I'd raised for 13 years. You were never really their father? The kitchen lights seemed to dim, the room suddenly airless as Benjamin and Elle stood in the doorway, arms crossed, smug satisfaction in their eyes. In that moment, I felt my reality crack. I wasn't family. I was an ATM with a pulse. 3 hours earlier, I'd found my closet raided, dress shirts shredded to ribbons across the bedroom floor. My laptop files containing critical work presentations deleted. The car I'd paid off just last month keyed so deeply the metal curled like paper. The security camera footage showed Benjamin and Elle laughing as they systematically destroyed everything I valued. Yet somehow, watching Diana dismiss 13 years of bedtime stories, school projects, and unconditional love with a casual shrug hurt worse than any physical damage. It was the moment everything became crystal clear. They have a point, Jacob. Maybe ease up. The kitchen floor seemed to tilt beneath me. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my family, dissolved into vapor. My throat tightened as I looked at the 3 people I'd spent over a decade loving, protecting, providing for. These strangers who wore familiar faces. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating, broken only by the rhythmic tapping of Diana's fingernails against her phone screen. I still remember how my heart raced that night, blood pounding in my ears as I stood frozen in place. The air conditioning hummed quietly in the background, but sweat beaded on my forehead. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to shake Diana until she looked me in the eyes. But instead, I just stood there, the bitter taste of betrayal filling my mouth. I still remember the day I met Diana in the hospital cafeteria. She was a young widow with 2 small children. Benjamin, 4, clutching a toy car with one hand and her sleeve with the other. And Elle, barely walking, balancing on uncertain legs. Diana looked hollow-eyed, like someone drowning in responsibilities she couldn't possibly manage alone. Her husband, a military officer, had died a hero's death, leaving her to shoulder everything. I saw their struggle and wanted to help, not because I had to, but because something in me recognized something in them, the possibility of family. For 13 years, I'd been there for every milestone. When Benjamin broke his arm climbing the backyard tree, I was the one who held his other hand through every x-ray, who slept in the uncomfortable hospital chair so he wouldn't wake up alone. I can still feel the plastic armrest digging into my side, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as I watched his small chest rise and fall in sleep, his arm encased in bright blue plaster, his favorite color. When Elle had night terrors at 6 years old, I was the one who sat beside her bed night after night, reading stories until her breathing steadied. I memorized The Velveteen Rabbit front to back, could recite it even now if you asked me to. The way her tiny fingers would slowly relax their death grip on my shirt as the words washed over her. The smell of the lavender lotion Diana insisted would help her sleep. The way her eyelashes would flutter against her cheeks as she finally drifted off. Every recital, every soccer game, every parent-teacher conference, I was there. The videos on my phone filled with wobbly footage of dance performances and soccer goals. The refrigerator plastered with artwork and A+ spelling tests. The annual beach trips where I taught Benjamin to body surf. The kitchen messes when Elle wanted to learn to bake cupcakes. I was there for all of it, not because it was an obligation, but because I thought we were building something unbreakable. But things shifted when Benjamin turned 17. Small disrespect became outright contempt. "You're not my real dad" became their battle cry, a weapon they wielded whenever I asked for basic consideration. "Clean your room? You're not my real dad." "Come home by curfew? You're not my real dad. Now stop talking to your mother like she's your servant." "You're not my real dad." I could have handled the teenager's rebellion. What broke me was Diana's silence, her tacit permission, her quiet encouragement of their behavior. She'd watch them cut me down, then glance away as if witnessing nothing more interesting than a commercial. The night everything shattered beyond repair, Benjamin had walked in past midnight. When I asked where he'd been, he looked me dead in the eye. "You're not my real dad. Stop acting like you own me." Elle, standing behind him, nodded. "Yeah, you're just some guy Mom married." I turned to Diana, waiting for her to say something, anything, to recognize 13 years of shared parenthood. But she just stood there, expression blank, phone in hand. Nothing. That's when I felt it, a cold clarity washing through me. I had confused convenience with connection. I wasn't family, I was function. So I stopped functioning. That night, I sat alone in our backyard until nearly dawn, watching the stars fade as the sky slowly brightened. My clothes damp with dew, my mind finally quiet after hours of chaos. In that stillness, I made my decision. No more rides to school, they could take the bus. The next morning, Benjamin stood in the driveway, backpack slung over one shoulder, squinting at me through the kitchen window. His expression shifted from confusion to anger as he realized no one was coming to drive him. I sipped my coffee and turned away. No more allowance, they could ask their mother. I still remember Elle's face when she held out her hand on Friday, the familiar expectant smile fading as I walked past without acknowledging her. "But it's allowance day," she said, following me down the hallway. "Ask your mother," I replied without turning around. No more stepping in when Benjamin got in trouble. He could face consequences. The principal's voice on the answering machine explaining about the fight, requesting a meeting. Diana's frantic voicemails from work. "Jacob, you need to handle this. I can't leave my shift." I deleted them all. No more replacing Elle's broken phone. She could save up. The cracked screen spiderwebbed across her latest model iPhone. "I can't even use it," she complained, tossing it onto the kitchen counter. I picked it up, handed it back. "That's unfortunate," I said, and nothing more. No more family dinners cooked after 10-hour workdays, my hands still smelling of garlic and basil as I asked about their days. No more weekend shopping sprees, the trunk loaded with bags, their excited chatter filling the car on the drive home. Diana tried to compensate, of course. She kept them comfortable, kept their lives running normally, kept them believing nothing had changed. But I knew what she didn't. Our financial stability had always rested on my shoulders. The mortgage, the car payments, the credit cards, the insurance, all in my name, all paid from my accounts. It took exactly 27 days for reality to set in. I tracked the progression like a scientist observing an experiment, noting each small shift. Day 7, the first time they ran out of milk and no one replaced it. Day 12, Diana's credit card declined at the gas station. Day 15. Benjamin's favorite sneakers developed a hole, but no new pair appeared. I watched from the window as Benjamin sprinted 3 blocks trying to catch the city bus, having missed his usual ride. His untied shoelaces whipping behind him, his too small backpack bouncing against his spine, the look of panic on his face when he realized no one was coming to his rescue. I overheard Elle complaining when Diana couldn't afford to replace her cracked phone screen. But everyone else has the new one? I have the oldest phone in my entire grade. Her voice rising to that particular pitch of teenage indignation. Diana's tired sigh, the frustrated scrape of her chair against the kitchen tile. I noticed Diana's expression tighten when school fees came due. The way she spread the bills across the kitchen table late at night when she thought everyone was asleep. The calculator app glowing on her phone as she moved numbers around like puzzle pieces that wouldn't fit together, no matter how she arranged them. Then came the night Diana confronted me, face flushed with anger. "You're being a damn child, Jacob. What kind of man punishes his own family just because his feelings are hurt? You're neglecting your responsibilities." There it was. Not my love. Not my presence. My responsibilities. "Why do you never defend me?" I asked quietly. "Why do you always let them talk to me like that?" Her sneer answered before her words did. "Because I agree with them, Jacob. You were never really their father. I told them not to let you control them. I raised them alone before you, and I can do it again." 13 years of my life dismissed in 13 words. Something inside me went ice cold, then hot with relief. Finally, honesty. Finally, clarity. Finally, permission to stop pretending. I didn't shout, I didn't argue, I just nodded, turned, and walked away. What they didn't know was that I'd been documenting everything. The destroyed property, the threatening texts, the hostile environment, meeting with lawyers, filing police reports, preparing my exit with the same methodical care I'd once used to build our life together. One morning, after everything was in place, I left an envelope on the kitchen counter before heading to work. Inside, divorce papers, police reports, evidence of destruction of property, everything my lawyer advised would protect me from false accusations. I didn't answer when Diana called, her voice cycling from rage to desperation. I had already moved out, taking only what mattered. Joint bank accounts closed, credit cards canceled. Everything was in my name, and I'd made sure she had no legal claim to any of it. The messages came next. "You're such a coward, Jacob. You ran away the moment things got tough. A real father doesn't abandon his family." I almost laughed. This from the woman who'd encouraged the kids to treat me like an outsider in my own home, who'd stood silently while they dismantled my dignity piece by piece, who'd admitted I was never family to begin with. Weeks passed, then months. Diana's messages slowed as reality set in. Then came something unexpected. Messages from the kids. First Benjamin. "Hey, can we talk?" Then Elle. "Things aren't great right now." Each message increasingly desperate. "I just wanted to say sorry for everything. We should have treated you better. Things have been hard since you left. Mom's not handling things well." And finally, "I miss you." I let each message sit unopened. Not from spite, but because I was finally free. Free from walking on eggshells in my own home. Free from pouring love into an endless void. Free from the constant effort of trying to earn what should have been freely given. Respect, appreciation, belonging. Walking away from Diana and the kids was the hardest thing I ever did. Not because I still wanted them in my life, but because for so long I'd convinced myself that being a good man meant enduring disrespect, that love meant sacrificing dignity. I was wrong. A man who values himself doesn't stay where he's not valued. Now I live for myself. I focus on my career, my goals, my happiness. I spend time with people who actually care about me. I've reconnected with old friends, traveled, started hobbies I never had time for before. I don't wake up wondering what fresh drama awaits. I wake up free. If you're watching this and feeling that knot in your stomach because someone in your life treats you like an ATM, a convenience, or an afterthought, I see you. The years you've invested may make walking away seem impossible. You might be telling yourself that real love means endless sacrifice, but ask yourself, would someone who truly loves you make you feel so small? When people show you who they are, believe them. Stop giving your best to those who give you their worst. And remember, sometimes they only realize your worth once you're gone. By then, it's too late. Your worth isn't determined by what you provide. It's inherent. And sometimes reclaiming your life means walking away from people who never deserved you in the first place. I want to share something I've come to understand through this whole journey. Society tells men that our value lies in what we can offer, financially, physically, emotionally. We're taught that sacrifice equals love, that providing equals worthiness. We internalize these messages until we believe them ourselves. For 13 years, I mistook function for connection. I thought if I just worked hard enough, gave enough, sacrificed enough, I would eventually earn what should have been freely given. Respect, appreciation, belonging. I confused obligation with love. I mistook convenience for family. And the hardest part wasn't walking away from them. It was walking away from the version of myself I'd created. The man who believed his worth was measured by his utility to others. The man who thought love was something you earned through sacrifice rather than something freely exchanged between equals. Diana and the kids didn't just take advantage of me financially. They took advantage of my deepest fear that without them, without being needed, I would somehow cease to matter. That's the lie I had to unlearn. Some nights I still wake up in a cold sweat, wondering if I made the right choice. But then I remember how it felt to live in that house. The constant knot in my stomach, the forced smiles, the walking on eggshells, the subtle humiliations that accumulated like drops of water slowly eroding stone. I remember what it was like to pour love into an endless void, always giving, never receiving. And I compare that to my life now, the peace, the freedom, the genuine connections I've formed with people who value me for who I am, not what I provide. I remember what it's like to wake up without that weight on my chest, to breathe freely, to laugh without restraint. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. People can only treat you the way you allow them to. When you set the bar low, they'll happily crawl under it. When you teach people that your love comes without conditions, they'll take advantage every time. Has someone ever made you feel like you're only valued for what you provide? Have you ever given your all to people who gave nothing in return? Share your experience in the comments below. This community understands what you're going through, and your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And don't forget to subscribe for more honest conversations about the lessons life teaches us when we least expect them.